Welcome back. So we're going to go back to the little engine project, the little engine that just might. I wanted to give you a quick little update. So this just came in the mail. Not everything in here, but this right here. This is the missing front cover for the Model A. This is a certified used part from an eBay seller. Got it for $35 shipped, which is quite impressive. It is a cast iron part. Yes, the entire front cover is cast iron. This thing weighs about as much as it looks. It's all there. It still has the air vane built into it, which is what directs the airflow correctly. It still has the wire mesh guard, which I'm going to probably end up having to replace because it's pretty badly rotten in some spots. But I'm going to try to leave it alone. What we're going to do with this is we're going to soak this in evapor rust. And we're going to get rid of all the rust. I'm going to sand it. I'm going to prime it with a high build primer. And then we're going to sand it and prime it again and try to get it nice and smooth. It's pretty pitted. It is cast iron. So, and then we're going to put a coat of paint on that. And then I'm going to try to treat it with something like a clear coat that's fuel resistant. For that you would use a 2K clear. I believe Eastwood makes it. So that's exciting. We have at least one of the missing pieces. I was kind of worried about what parts I'll be able to find and which ones I won't. Also of note, I've discussed this with my dad actually. I gave him a synopsis of what was going on here and he agreed. We're going to just hone the cylinder. I'm not going to bore it. It really, and you can see very clearly that there's a lot of pitting here. But I think a good heavy-duty honing would take care. Oh yeah, my new light. I had this in my office at work, and I'm like, you know, I could bring that home. It was one that I actually bought for my job, and I got a different light, so now I have a home for it. Anyway, so I'm going to hone the cylinder myself. I'm going to do a nice, good, clean job of that. And so that's going to have to happen. So we're going to hone this thing. We're not going to bore it. One of the problems is I can't find an oversized piston for this engine. I'd have to go searching, and I'm just not going to do that. I'm going to stick with what we got, run what we brung. But what we got to do is clean this piston. And we're going to clean the oil pump, the piston, and we're going to just go ahead and do that. I'm going to use straight simple green. This simple green, I just need to use it up. This simple green is from 2007. This is antique simple green right here. It's been sitting around for damn near 14 years, so it's pretty ripe. We're going to just put that in there. I don't think it's going to attack the metal too bad. We'll find out, won't we? So set that. We want the temperature going. I'm going to let the temperature build up for a little bit. And we're going to put the cover on it. And when it's ready to go, do a little hot soak. And we're going to let it sizzle. And that all having been said, straight simple green. That should do a good job of breaking down the grease and oils that have built up over the years. But I've got to get my evapor rust moved into a smaller container so we can take care of, like, for example, the intake tube. We're going to get that soaked in evapor rust. Oh yeah, don't forget the rest of the oil pump. Stuff is slippery. We'll let that heat up for a little bit. Maybe we can get it going. There we go. So we're going to let that go for a couple cycles and see what happens. See how it looks. In the meantime, I'm going to take some steel pieces and dunk them in the Dunkaroo tank. Well, the ones that I can, anyway. The starter cup. So you have to degrease these first. They have to be clean, free of any grease. Head bolts. The valves are clean, we're not worried about those. Yeah. And we'll let those soak for a little while. This is starting to clean up a little bit. Just a little bit. But you can see that it's a little bit shinier than it was earlier. And we're going to clean these rings up in place. I don't want to pull these off because I don't want to, I think I might actually have to. I just don't want them to break or get misplaced. So, in the tank. The piston's starting to look really nice. I'm going to take the air compressor and just kind of blow out any loose chunks. I really should take these rings off. I'm going to have to, I think. My biggest fear, though, is I'm going to break them in half because they're so old. But that's my biggest fear, but we have to do what we have to do. No question about it. So I've got to get these rings off. And if we break it, we break it, I guess. So I just have to remember which one's the top one, which one's the lower one. The biggest problem now is I don't know what the orientation was. So I'm going to have to be very careful about how I proceed. So this one's the top ring. You know what I could do is I could put a little mark as to where the top was, because there is no mark on these. You don't want to flip them upside down. So what I'm going to do, alright, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take the ring that's in my hand and I'm going to take a magic marker. And I'm going to mark off this orientation at the top. Yeah. Okay. So this way we know where the top, see, but look at all the crap that's in there. That's got to come out. We can't leave that there. And it just cannot be done. So we've got to get these rings off one way or the other. And I just traded places here with this one. There we go. There's that one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to inscribe a mark, a small mark, at the top of each ring. So that way we can put them back into the container, oh, fuck. That's what I was afraid of. So we now need a new oil control ring. So I'm going to have to find a new set of rings. So Fuck the world. Okay. I now need to go finding a new set of rings because I knew that was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen. But we have to do that. They have to come off. So I'm going to proceed with caution. I'm going to clean it up, and I'm going to try to find me a new set of rings. I don't have a choice now. Well, that's what can happen. You know, when you're working on something old like this, and you can't exactly go to Napa and buy parts for it. You just have to do what you have to do. And I tried to be careful, but those rings are old. They've been through many, many, many heat cycles. And sometimes shit happens. So, and then you've got to think, okay, great. Now that I've broken a ring, what do I do now? Well, guess what? You got to buy new rings. Somehow you have to find new parts to fix what you done broke. And it's not that I didn't do it right. See, I was afraid that would happen. I knew it would happen. It was like almost a guarantee. So now I got to go find rings. Wish me luck. Okay, that little misadventure set me back $20. So I found a new old stock set of rings. It turns out the rings that this engine uses are not entirely uncommon in the Briggs world. So 290820 is the part number. It's 290820. And that is the part number for the ring set. And that includes 2 firing rings, or two compression rings, and 1 oil control ring. So in hindsight, that little mishap, I'm kind of glad it happened, because I wouldn't have spent the $20 on new rings, yeah, had I known. But it's important to note that if you have an antique engine, an uncommon one, for example, one that may be a little harder to find parts for, believe it or not, than this, then what you can do is save the rings that break. If your ring breaks, it's not the end of the world. And what you're going to want to do is measure them. Figure out what the dimensions are. And you can find rings, I don't know how, but I know it can be found that, you know, if you have a ring that is of an oddball size, there's a possibility that another engine manufacturer used the same rings or something very similar, and you can sometimes make it work. In this case, 290820 is a very common set of rings, and I found one part supplier that had them for what seemed to be a fairly modern engine. It's a 2 1/4 inch bore, apparently. So it looks to be more like 2 inches, but that's what the manual says it needs. So I've got a tape measure here, and I'm going to just confirm. Yeah, that is about a 2 1/4 bore. So any 2 1/4 inch piston or set of rings should fit this engine. The more you know, I guess. So we won't be worrying about these old rings, but I'm going to hang on to them anyway, just in case. Let's say I get the new rings and I crack one of the compression rings, putting it on. Shit happens, right? Well, I have a spare. It's better than nothing. So we're going to put those parts aside for now. Put them on the windowsill here. Lesson learned, my friends. Lesson learned. Yeah, this stuff works the balls. This is Evapo-Rust. It is amazing stuff. It really does the job. By tomorrow, all the parts in this bin are going to look brand new. We're going to take those out tomorrow and have a look, see what happens. All right. Now by now our fuel pump should be pretty much ready to go. Here it is. Let's take a look at that screen. It's like new again. And all the crap that was inside is all cleaned out now. Can't argue with results. But I want to fish out the rest of the parts. Yeah, looks brand new. Look at that. Nice and clean in there. There's a spring that goes in there. That's down inside the tank. And there's a plunger and some bolts. It's really hot in there, so I should be wearing like super gloves or something. There's my spring. I got one bolt here. What we're going to do is we're going to pump some oil. Oh, that's hot. We're going to pump some oil in there. Ugh. There's a plunger. We're just going to let the piston sit in there and cook. This is hot stuff. Alright. So this should be all nice and cleaned, ready to pump oil again. You want to clean all this detergent off. You want to hear a nice rattle. If you're doing one of these engines, you want to listen for a nice little rattle inside there. If you don't hear that rattle, you got a problem. Same with the pickup tube. There's little check valves in there. They need to be loose to do what they got to do. Okay. So what I'm going to do is get a little dish. VIP hasn't sold auto parts in about 5 years, so this is pretty ripe. All right, let's put our oil pump in the little dish there and see what happens. This is about as much movement as it gets in real life. So it hasn't pumped anything, although it is pumping it. You can hear it, the pitch is changing. Any second now, it's going to start spewing. There it goes. Alright, we're going to get this going again. 3, 4, go. So she works. Look at that. Let me get it close up. That, my friends, is how this oil pump works in the engine. Pretty cool. Alright, so we know that when we start this motor up for the first time, it's not going to seize. Now, it's important that when you're putting the engine back together that you maybe prime this thing, because you saw how much movement it took for it to start moving oil around. And I'm going to coat the whole thing in oil so it doesn't corrode while it's in the packaging. So I'm going to put it in a little plastic bag or something so that it doesn't get all crusty. So our oil pump is working quite well. My little sizzle tank is making some ominous noises. I think it's gonna die on me. Alright, so we got the oil pump put in a bag. I'm gonna put the carburetor in a separate bag as well, since I got one. And there we are. Now this carburetor is one of the only parts of this engine that I cannot find anything for. I can't find gaskets, I can find nothing for this carburetor. So I'll be making most of my own parts. Sounds funner than it is. Let's take a look at our piston and see how she's doing. Is there any part of that thing that's magnetic, like maybe the bolts? No? Yeah, there we go. See what pissy the piston looks like. Oh, that's hot. Ooh, it's like... Yeah, it's looking good though. You can see that this crap is really starting to break apart. So I'm going to take my... I'm going to take me a wire brush. Like this one. Should be using a brass brush, but this is what I got. So I'm going to take this wire brush and I'm going to break up some of that stuff even more. Yeah, this is really, really thick. Now, we could not have left this on there. So what's going to happen is this stuff will soften up a little bit maybe when the engine gets hot, but it's going to act like tar, and the rings will stick to it. And you can't leave that like that. You just cannot do that. Now, if you're inside an engine this far, I want you to smell that crankcase breather. And I want you to tell me what it smells like. If you were to take the word old and give it a smell, this is it. In the tank she goes. So we're going to be reusing the original crankcase breather element. We're just going to make sure it's good and clean. Then, we're not going to stop there. We're going to take our, I have a can of carburetor cleaner somewhere. There it is. And we're going to try to clean out all the sludge that's up inside there. We're just going to let it flow down into the bench below. We're not fancy here. We're just going to do that. Now, once that's all done, once this is ready to go back together again, I'm not going to waste this oil. We're going to take this oil and we're going to soak that crankcase breather in oil. Because we can. Because it's the right thing to do. You know what I'm saying? Now, I was not successful in getting this breather off. Not really sure if it's threaded on. I think it is. Let's see if we can get the other side off. The bottom of this out of here. Yeah, it's threaded on. It's just on so tight that... Now look at the other side of it. We're just going to pop that in there too. Just let it cook for a little bit. If we don't, and we still have yet to clean out or to get this exhaust pipe off. That's got to be done with a torch, and I'm not sure how much of this is going to be salvageable, but that's what's got to happen. Put this in the box so I don't lose it. If we lose that carburetor, we're screwed. Screwed, like double screwed. I'm going to put this plate in there too. Why not? The more the merrier. Bring the timer back up again. Okay, one lesson learned. That worked fine for this plate here. It looks great. But let me tell you what happened with the with the filter element. And this is why, you know what, just get some basically steel wool, very coarse steel wool, because let me show you what this looks like. Not only did it turn the solution blacker than the ace of spades, but it just turned into a giant ball of what looks like hair. So we're just gonna let this ball of hair go, and we're gonna replace it with something a little bit new. But that's really what it is. It's just steel wool. It looks like you ever clean a drain out? Yeah. Kind of like that. So we're gonna throw that away. We're not gonna waste any time on that. I thought I was doing something cool. Turns out I was wrong. So okay, we got these two little plates here. These are ready to go back into the engine. I'm just going to get some, I think I have some like 00 or single zero steel wool, whatever the coarsest variety might be. And we're going to use that. So these are all good and clean. I had to change out the fluid. So I ran out of Snipple green because I used pretty much the whole thing. And I didn't dilute it, I used it straight. You're supposed to dilute it. But I put some of Harbor Freight's own store brand cleaning powder. I put a lot in there, a lot more than it calls for, just to see what would happen. And I love to watch the world burn. So we're going to let this reach up to the temperature, stratospheric temperatures that it gets to, and see what she does. But I can already see a difference. I mean, look at that. Really breaking up that junk. Pretty cool. Okay. I don't know, there's not a lot of gas left in this guy, so we're going to heat the block. Don't mind the smoke. I'm going to heat the, you don't heat the pipe itself, you heat what the pipe is screwed into. I have a much bigger one of these. I probably should have grabbed it first. But this is what I got here in the garage. So let's give it a try. We're not going to reuse it, for sure. And let's see here. Now, use a heavier hammer. We won the battle, but not the war. We still have a pipe stuck in there. A very gross looking one at that, so I want to get that off. And to do that, we're going to have to reheat, reload. Well, you know, sometimes leaving well enough alone. I should have just left the nipple alone and worked with it later on, but no, I wanted it out because I wanted to start fresh. And after beating the living fuck out of it and swearing at it, it's one with that iron. There's got to be a way to get it out. And in fact, I crushed it down with the pipe wrench unwillingly. So I don't know what we're going to do. I have to get it out of there. One way or the other, it's got to come out. So using either a hotter torch, I don't know. I'm going to have to figure it out. Now this collar, that's loose. I got that to move. That was no easy feat either. My fear is it's going to break off. And I'm going to have to bring it to a machine shop and beg and plead them to make it work. I don't know what I'm going to do about that. But now it has to come off because it's ruined. And, you know. But these NPT threads, they get nasty when they get rusty. Real nasty. It's almost a showstopper, it's that bad. And the other news, our piston's looking fantastic. Look at all that gunk is already melting away. I'm going to give you the little secret. It's not the ultrasonics in these Harbor Freight units, it's the heat that does more work. It's a single transducer. It can only do so much. And it ain't much. But a good one's going to have two transducers working together or opposite each other to create that nice, you know, shockwave effect. But this is gonna be a problem if I can't get this off. Furthermore, I got to get this bolt. I'm not too worried about that bolt. That's going to be fine. I'm not too concerned, but I might have to rechase those threads. But this guy is going to kill me. I have tried beating this thing into submission. I have tried heating it up. I have tried everything I know. It is not coming out. And you can see inside here where the threads begin, it is crusty as fuck. So what's happened here is basically these two pieces have become one. Over the years, you know, with the exhaust, heat, and all that happy jazz. What is that from? Anyway, it just isn't coming out. I just don't know. I'm gonna have to brainstorm this a little bit. One thing I thought about doing is actually bringing it over to the drill saw, the drill press, right? Bring it to the drill press and drill a hole all the way across, and put a heavy steel or iron bar in there or something, and just whack it. Bing, 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 bing. But that could backfire too. It doesn't look like there's a lot of thread left. It looks like the threads have become one with the part. Let's let's soak it up in some PB Blaster. You know, let's just get the threads nice and soaked. The penetrating catalyst, they call it. Well, I need a miracle right now. Says this stuff works. Everybody swears by it. I say it works, but my dad's used this stuff since at least the early 90s. Anyway, we're gonna let it soak with that stuff in there. See what's gonna happen. I might have to get a MAP gas torch, something a little hotter than propane. Get it to its peak. Look at that. This piston is starting to look a little nasty because we've gone through many cycles. But you look at all that coke in there, and that's a lot. That's a little gross. But as I was saying, you can see the drain back holes for the oil control ring, and those again are for draining the oil back. And the oil that drained back, you can see how it burned onto the inside of the piston skirt, which is not supposed to happen like that. I'm pretty sure that's not supposed to be the way it goes. But here we are. Alright, well, I'm going to call it a night, and we'll catch you on the flip side. We'll see what happens. Well, I have slept on it, and I slept on it, and I slept on it. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to weld a socket to this pipe. And I'm going to get an impact socket, a sacrificial impact socket. I'm talking of a Harbor Freight variety, a big one. Maybe even, ooh, here's an even better idea, an O2 wrench. Whatever the case may be, I'm gonna weld me an impact socket. These are cast iron. These are very strong. I'm gonna weld a socket to this, and I'm gonna use an impact to get it out. I will get it out. I promise. I have to. I don't have much of a choice. It has to be removed. One way or the other, it has to be removed. So, I got an idea just now. Well, it was one that I was thinking about yesterday, but I finally said, you know what? Let's give it a try. So what we're going to do, we're going to take this puny little pipe wrench and this big ass pipe, and we're going to do something that I should have probably tried a little earlier. But I had to screw the engine down to the bench to make this work. And I just heated it up with a torch. Not gonna happen. I don't believe it. It's just... Ooh! Ooh! It's moving! Oh yeah! It's moving. I just cracked it loose. That was no small feat. Oh my god! Damn! Yeah! Wow! Wow, 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 wow. That was a bitch. I can say that, right? On my channel, I can say bitch. Because that's what that was. So, At first you don't succeed. Look at that. Oh my God. Part of it's missing. It looks like, yeah, those threads are going to have to be retraced. But we did it. We freaking did it. Put all that shit in there. Yeah. Now those threads will be fine. We didn't crack the iron. Just goes to show how well built these engines were. You know what? I underestimated the materials that this engine was made from. Now, why go through all that trouble? I could have saved that nipple. But I was thinking ahead and all the work I wanted to do to this engine and how I wanted to do it and how far I wanted to get into it. And I'm like, well, I can't just reuse that. No. We might reuse some of this black iron. Like, this is a good elbow. Maybe not. I mean, it's usable. It's not ruined. But, I mean, iron fittings are so cheap. Why bother reusing the old ones? Actually, this piece right here is part of the old muffler. This is not even... This is just part of the original muffler, which I will be replacing. All we need is an elbow and the nipple that comes out, plus a lock ring. No big deal. Boy, that was a nightmare. It was starting to look. It was starting to get incredulous towards the end because I'm like, what? As you saw me do this, as I'm pulling that wrench, the entire fitting is twisting. Like, what the holy hell is going on here? Anyway, I mean, how rusty could it possibly be? Well, a lot rustier than I thought. Speaking of rust, let's take a look at our parts bath. Let's see what we got going on in there. Damn, that was rough. Okay, starter cup. Look at that. Looks beautiful. Starter cup looks absolutely gorgeous. I could eat off of it. Look at that. Nice gray iron right there. Beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. That looks nice. Just clean it up a little bit. Spray it down with maybe some brake cleaner. And then I think this, I'm not sure if this gets painted or not. Originally I think this was coated with probably zinc or something. I don't know. But looks nice. You can see, now look at this. You can see all the serial numbers and part numbers and stampings. That's what I like about evaporust. It's like when you don't want to get involved with sandblasting, and you kind of want to keep the original patina. Here's a good example. One of the things my grandfather told me when he gave me all of his engines, or my dad and I, he just brought them over on an old trailer and said, "Here, take these. These are my pride and joy. I'm old now and I can't do all this stuff anymore." He said, "Never, ever, ever sandblast these old engines, because if you do, you're going to remove all of the casting imperfections, and those are valuable to a collector." And I said, "You know what? That's actually quite interesting." So if you have a rusty engine block like this one here, and you don't want to sandblast it, dunk it in a tank of evaporust after degreasing it. Now look at this. Remember what this this push rod plate looked like? This cover plate? It wasn't so pretty. Look at it now. Brand new part. And all we did was dissolve the iron oxide. That's all we did. Here's our intake pipe. This was on the carburetor. It just had a little bit of rust on it, but we didn't have to do anything crazy. We just dunked it in the tank. Came out brand new. Okay, maybe not quite as nice, but better than it was. So I gotta make sure that goes back into the carburetor part bit. Ah, yes. This was our side plate cover thing. This is the cooling deflectors. This is what directs the airflow around and through the cylinder head fins. And look at how this came out. This part looked pretty nasty. What's nice about this engine is that this part here, especially because these are hard to find, it did not rust away. It did not get rotted out. Now this is just sheet metal. Now this is something that would be a prime candidate for rotting away into nothing. We're gonna make sure any part you take out of that tank, you treat it with something immediately because it will flash rust. Okay, what else is here? We got bolts. We got head bolts. We got spacers. We got all those little bits and pieces. I'll put it in here for now. They'll have to be washed up later on. All this hardware, springs, bolts, spacers, washers, they just come out looking new again. Well, to an extent. These had some heavy rust on them. I'm going to put them back in. What else? Got some screws. Yeah. We'll just leave them in there for now. This is my broken head bolt. That had a spacer on it. Yeah. But all that hardware, just dunk it in the tank and let nature do its thing. As for this starter cup, yeah, that's not bad. Use this to clean up inside all the gunk out of there. Now, what happened to my, you'll notice that the evaporust is black. There is some dirt that got into it, but it'll still work. It'll still actually work. We can still use it. But everything's got to be sprayed down, WD on everything, just so that it doesn't flash rust. Put it in the parts box. And then we have to work on something else. I'm going to get a couple more gallons of the evaporust, and we're going to do the flywheel cover, and we'll do the, I might actually do the whole block, but I have to get it really good and degreased. If I knew someone with a hot tank, I would probably do a hot tank degreasing of the whole block. That's still kind of warm. We still are not out of the woods. We still have this broken stud here. So for that, we're just going to let it soak. Oops, splashed that all over my car. No. We're going to let that soak with PB Blaster. I have to say, this must have helped to some extent. I mean, it didn't hurt. But letting it soak with that stuff. This stuff is thin enough that it creeps down around. It's supposed to creep down around the threads and loosen it up that way. But I actually have to buy a tool for that. But I am so glad I got that this exhaust pipe. I'm so happy I got this off, because I was starting to worry. Because if I couldn't get this off, that would be pretty much a showstopper. Honestly, if you can't get... If I couldn't get an exhaust system mounted to this engine because that became one with the block, what the hell am I doing? Why am I even going any further with it? At that point, it's time for some expensive machine work. But I'm glad we got out of that. We just have one more broken stud. I do need to get the... I think what I'm going to do is make a Harbor Freight run, maybe next week. And I'm going to get a different kind of puller, a jaw style puller. I'm going to get a piston ring. I'm sorry, a cylinder bore, a hone. I'm going to get a hone, and that's what we're going to do. So I don't have to keep this thing bolted to the bench, but might as well just leave it here for now. But this is totally a salvageable engine still. And I did it all myself so far. How do you think I'm doing, folks? I didn't have to call Musty One once. Not to belittle that guy. He's good. He's really good. But I think his method of working is very similar to what I do. Which is why I love his channel so much. He's just nonchalant about it. He knows what he's doing, and he doesn't have to answer to anybody. I'm going to put these bolts back in there. We'll leave him pickle for a little while. And you know what? This governor spring, it's got a light coating of rust. Actually, that's brass. That is a brass spring, my friends. That should go in the ultrasonic tank. So probably do that later on. As for this guy, yeah, look at the pitting on this. It's got some major pitting. So a little more rust there. I'm gonna put it back in. Okay, let's just leave it there for a week. Any more hardware we got kicking? Oh, I got this bolt right here. We'll put that in there. I got the, let's see, the split washer that can go in there too. I've got the bolts, the block bolts. See what I did? I bolted the sump back to the bench. Alright, I remounted the engine. Now these I'm going to clean up with a wire wheel, I think, when the time comes for those. We'll put those in the wire wheel. Alright, moving forward. I like it. I like moving forward. Now let's get this guy back in here. I'll have to figure out which bolt went to this. Oh, I know what it was.